Galactic Misconceptions. The observation deck of the Celestial Seeker offered an unparalleled view of the cosmos, a tapestry of stars and nebula that would have inspired awe in most sentient species. Yet for Science Officer Xerax, the majestic vista barely registered as he focused on the datapad before him, his four eyes blinking in sequential patterns of irritation. Another human distress signal, he chittered, his mandibles clicking with unmistakable disdain. Third one this cycle. Captain Thella's translucent membranes rippled with the equivalent of a sigh. The Moravian commander's fluid-filled body glistened under the ambient lighting as she glided across the deck toward her science officer. Standard protocol, Xerax. Log it and forward to Central Command. With respect, Captain, Xerax continued, antennae twitching. Shouldn't we at least investigate? Galactic Convention states that. I know what the convention states, Thela interrupted, her voice resonating through her specialized translator. But we're a science vessel, not a rescue ship. Besides, you know how humans are with their communications. Probably another false alarm. First Officer Krell, a hulking Dravaki whose silicon-based exoskeleton gleamed with bioluminescent patterns, rumbled his agreement from his station. Remember that emergency last year? Their vessel simply ran out of coffee. Coffee. The bridge erupted into various forms of alien laughter, from Krell's thunderous vibrations to the high-pitched squeals of the twin Pelusian navigators. I've read their biological assessments, added Medical Officer Ventrix, her tentacles swirling in amusement. Supposedly, they need this coffee substance to function properly. Caffeine addiction wired into their very evolution. What kind of apex species develops dependence on a plant? Xerax's exoskeleton chittered with his own version of laughter. Have you read the Federation's official human capability report? Pure fiction. They claim humans can survive radiation levels that would liquefy most species' internal organs. My personal favorite. Engineer Dross buzzed, her insectoid wings fluttering slightly, is their supposed adrenaline response, as if a biochemical could temporarily transform them into super beings. The mockery continued as each crew member contributed their favorite absurd human claim. Humans could supposedly survive losing significant amounts of blood. They could allegedly continue functioning with minimal sleep for days. Some reports even suggested they could adapt to almost any planetary environment with minimal technological assistance. Its political correctness gone mad, Security Chief Gorvin grumbled, his crystalline form shimmering with irritation. The Galactic Federation includes these barely space-capable primates on the Council, and suddenly we all have to pretend they're not the weakest species in known space. Captain Thela allowed the banter to continue for several minutes before raising a gelatinous appendage for silence. Entertainment aside, we have actual work to do. Navigators set course for the Proxima system. Our survey of the asteroid belt can't wait any longer. As the crew returned to their stations, Xerax remained troubled by the distress call. Something in the coded message pattern seemed genuinely urgent, not like the typically overwrought human communications. After a moment of internal debate, he made a decision that would alter the fate of everyone aboard. Captain, he said, his tone suddenly serious enough that all four of Thela's sensory stalks swiveled toward him. I believe we should investigate this signal. We've already discussed this, Science Officer, Thela replied, her patience visibly thinning. This isn't a standard distress call, Xerax insisted, his claws moving rapidly across his console. The signal contains encrypted data packets following Federation Emergency Protocol Omega-7. The bridge fell silent. Omega-7 wasn't just any protocol, it indicated potential extinction-level threats. Are you certain? First Officer Krell demanded, his massive form suddenly looming over Xerax's station. Positive. And the encryption signature belongs to the UES Horizon, a human scientific vessel. It was on a classified mission studying the Vorpal Expanse. Captain Thella's entire body pulsated with concern. The Vorpal Expanse was a mysterious region of space that had swallowed countless exploration vessels over the centuries. How old is the signal? She asked. That's the concerning part, Xerax replied. According to the timestamp, it's been broadcasting for approximately 3 Earth months. 3 months? Medical Officer Ventrix's tentacles twisted in disbelief. No human could survive that long in emergency conditions. Their fragile physiology wold. Regardless of survival probability, Thela interrupted, we are bound by Galactic Convention to investigate. Plot a course to the signal's origin, maximum sustainable speed. The twin Pelusian navigators chattered their acknowledgement, their six-fingered hands dancing across the navigation controls. If I may, Captain, Security Chief Gorvin interjected, his crystalline form hardening with concern, the Vorpal Expanse is outside our jurisdiction and beyond our vessel's safety parameters. Noted, Chief, Thela responded, but Omega-7 supersedes standard protocols. Prepare a full security detail for potential boarding operations. The Celestial Seeker altered course, its powerful engines propelling it toward the mysterious distress signal. As the crew prepared for the unknown, their earlier mockery of human capabilities seemed increasingly hollow. 3 days later, the Celestial Seeker dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the vorpal expanse. The region lived up to its ominous reputation, swirling cosmic gases in impossible colors, gravitational readings that defied known physics, and radiation patterns that made their sensors glitch unpredictably. Signal located, announced Navigator Pix, the elder of the Pelusian twins, bearing 047 Mark 8. On-screen, Captain Thela ordered. The main view screen shimmered to life, displaying a sight that silenced every being on the bridge. The UVS horizon, or what remained of it, drifted against the backdrop of a violet-hued nebula. The human vessel had been torn apart, massive hull breaches exposing its innards to the vacuum of space. Debris orbited the main structure in a macabre dance of destruction. "By the void," whispered Engineer Dross, her compound eyes widening. "What could have done this?" "Analysis, Science Officer," Captain Thela demanded, her usual composed demeanor slightly rippling with shock. Xerax's fingers flew across his console, scanning. Damage patterns are consistent with energy weapons of unknown configuration. Radiation signatures suggest the attack occurred approximately 3 standard months ago, matching the age of the distress signal. "Survivors?" Thela asked, though her tone suggested she expected none. "Running life form scans," Xerax replied. After several tense moments, his antennae suddenly stood rigid. "Captain, I'm detecting a single life sign." "Impossible," Medical Officer Ventrix declared, slithering to Xerax's station to verify the readings herself. "After 3 months?" "Confirmed," Xerax insisted, faint but steady human-like signs emanating from the central portion of the vessel. "It appears to be in a sealed section." Captain Thela didn't hesitate. "Prepare a boarding party. Krell, Gorvin, Ventrix. You're with me." Xerax continued monitoring that life sign. Dross established a secure docking connection to the intact section. As the boarding party prepared in the shuttle bay, the crew's earlier derision toward humans had transformed into confused disbelief. How could any human have survived such catastrophic damage for 3 months? The boarding shuttle connected to the UES Horizon's emergency airlock with a metallic clang that resonated through both vessels. The boarding party, clad in environmental suits customized for their various physiologies, cycled through the airlock into the derelict human ship. The scene inside was one of devastation, emergency lighting casting eerie red shadows across corridors bearing scorch marks and impact damage. The artificial gravity functioned intermittently, causing loose debris to hover momentarily before crashing back to the deck plates. "Life support is minimal," reported First Officer Krell, consulting the readings on his suit. "Temperature is just above freezing. Oxygen levels barely sustainable for human physiology." This way, Security Chief Gorvin indicated, is crystalline form providing additional illumination in the darkened corridors. The life sign is emanating from the science lab section. They proceeded cautiously through the wreckage, stepping over broken equipment and, more disturbingly, the frozen remains of human crew members who hadn't survived the initial attack. Medical Officer Ventrix paused briefly at each body, her tentacles extending to scan them with her medical tricorder. "Captain," she reported after the 5th such examination, her voice troubled. "These humans didn't die from explosive decompression or the obvious trauma. There are microscopic puncture wounds consistent with parasitic infection." "What kind of parasite?" Captain Thela asked, her translucent body tensing noticeably. "Unknown," Ventrix admitted. "But the cellular degradation pattern is unlike anything in our database." The revelation added urgency to their mission. If some unknown parasitic organism had attacked the human crew, the survivor might be infected as well, potentially posing a threat to the Celestial Seeker. They finally reached the main science laboratory, its reinforced doors sealed shut by emergency protocols. The security panel beside it pulsed with weak emergency power. "The life sign is directly beyond this door," Gorvin confirmed. Captain Thela turned to Medical Officer Ventrix. "Your assessment?" Ventrix's tentacles waved uncertainly. "Without examining the survivor, I cannot determine infection status. Standard quarantine procedures would dictate leaving them sealed until—" Temperature dropping rapidly, interrupted First Officer Krell, checking his readings. "Life support will fail completely within hours." Captain Thela made her decision. "Override the lock, Chief." Security Chief Gorvin pressed his crystalline appendage against the security panel, interfacing directly with the human technology. After several tense moments, the doors hissed open, revealing the laboratory beyond. Unlike the chaos in the corridors, the laboratory appeared meticulously organized. Workstations lined the walls, each containing samples in various stages of analysis. In the center of the room stood a cylindrical chamber filled with a bluish liquid, a human stasis pod. and floating within it was a single human, eyes closed, appearing almost peaceful despite the catastrophe that had befallen the ship. Data readings on the pod's exterior indicated the stasis field was failing as power reserves dwindled. Infection status? Captain Thela demanded. Medical Officer Ventrix approached the pod, her medical scanner extended. No signs of the parasite. This human appears uninfected. How is that possible? First Officer Krell rumbled. If the entire crew was infected. Ventrix's tentacles gestured toward notes on a nearby console. According to this research log, this human was already in stasis when the attack occurred. They were conducting experiments on themselves, voluntarily inoculated with experimental protective measures against the very parasite they were studying. So the parasite attacked a ship because they were researching it? Captain Thela surmised. It would appear so, Ventrix confirmed, and based on these readings, the stasis field has preserved this human in suspended animation, preventing infection even as life support systems degraded around them. Captain Thela considered the situation. Galactic protocol would normally dictate extreme caution, leaving the potentially dangerous human in quarantine until proper authorities could be notified. But with the stasis field failing and the nearest Federation outpost weeks away, such caution meant certain death for the survivor. We're taking them with us, she announced. Prepare for immediate emergency extraction. Ventrix established a quarantine field in the medical bay. Krell assists with the stasis pod transfer. As they worked to disconnect the stasis pod from the dying ship's systems, Security Chief Gorvin approached Captain Thela privately. Captain, with respect, he said, his crystalline form vibrating with concern. Bringing a human aboard, especially one connected to this parasite research, poses significant risk to our vessel. Your concern is noted, Chief, Thela replied. But I will not abandon a sentient being when rescue is possible, even at the risk of your crew. Gorvin pressed. Captain Thela's gelatinous form pulsed with what might have been a sigh. Do you know why humans have a seat on the Federation Council, Chief? Political expediency, Gorvin replied immediately. That's what many believe, Thela acknowledged. But there's another reason, one that isn't widely discussed outside high-level diplomatic circles. Humans have survived catastrophes that would have exterminated most species. Their homeworld experienced 5 mass extinction events before they even evolved. Their history is a chronicle of disasters that should have ended them. Mythology, Gorvin dismissed. Perhaps Captain Thela conceded, watching as the stasis pod was carefully disconnected. But I suspect we're about to discover exactly how much truth lies behind human resilience myths. As the boarding party prepared to return to the Celestial Seeker with their unexpected human cargo, none of them realized just how prophetic the captain's words would prove to be or how their preconceptions about humanity were about to be shattered forever. Survival against all odds, Medical Officer Ventrix's auxiliary tentacles worked with practiced precision as she calibrated the quarantine field surrounding the human stasis pod. The Celestial Seeker's medical bay, designed to accommodate the diverse physiologies of its multi-species crew, had never housed a human patient before. Vital signs? Captain Thela inquired, her gelatinous form hovering at the edge of the quarantine boundary. Stable, but concerning, Ventrix replied, her primary tentacles gesturing toward the biomonitors. Core temperature below optimal human parameters, cardiac function minimal, and significant muscle atrophy consistent with extended stasis. Science Officer Xerax chittered nervously from his position at the diagnostic console. The stasis fluid contains a complex chemical matrix I've never encountered. It appears to have prevented cellular degradation while simultaneously delivering targeted immunoprotein therapy. In standard galactic, please, First Officer Krell rumbled, his massive exoskeleton creaking as he shifted his weight. It's not just keeping the human alive, Xerax clarified, antennae twitching with scientific fascination. It's actively strengthening their immune system against the parasite. This is incredibly advanced biotechnology beyond Federation standards. Security Chief Gorvin's crystalline form shimmered with suspicion. Beyond Federation standards? Then where did they acquire it? According to the research logs we recovered, Xerax replied, they developed it themselves. This human, Dr. Maya Chen, according to personnel records, was lead xenopathologist on a classified project studying parasitic organisms in the Vorpal Expanse. Captain Thela's sensory stalks extended with interest. Can you revive her safely? Medical Officer Ventrix's tentacles writhed in the equivalent of a shrug. Theoretically, a stasis system includes revival protocols, but human physiology is notoriously unpredictable. Our medical database on humans is limited. That's an understatement. Engineer Dross buzzed from where she was examining the stasis pod's technology. Most of what we know about humans comes from their own self-reported medical data, and they're known to exaggerate. We've all heard the myths, Captain Thela acknowledged, But Dr. Chen may be the only being who knows what happened to the UES horizon. More importantly, she may know if these parasites pose a wider threat. She turned to Ventrix. Begin revival procedures. The medical officer hesitated, her tentacles twisting anxiously. Captain, with respect, standard quarantine protocol dictates. We're well past standard protocols, medical officer. Thela interrupted. Proceed with revival. As Ventrix reluctantly initiated the revival sequence, the stasis fluid began to drain from the pod. The human's body, small and fragile-looking compared to most of the Celestial Seeker's crew, slowly descended until it rested on the bottom of the chamber. With a pneumatic hiss, the pod's transparent cover retracted. For several tense moments, nothing happened. The human lay motionless, her chest barely rising with shallow breaths. Revival unsuccessful? Security Chief Gorvin asked, a note of relief in his crystalline voice. Suddenly, the human's body convulsed violently, back arching as she gasped desperately for air. Her eyes flew open, wild and unfocused, as her limbs thrashed against invisible restraints. Seizure. Medical Officer Ventrix exclaimed, tentacles extending medical instruments toward the convulsing form. Administering sedative. Wait, Science Officer Xerax interrupted, mandibles clicking rapidly. My scans indicate this is a standard human stasis revival response. Their literature calls it emergent shock. The crew watched in horrified fascination as the human's convulsions gradually subsided. Her breathing stabilized and her eyes, round irises surrounded by white, an unsettling sight for species accustomed to compound eyes or sensory stalks, began to focus on her surroundings. Where the human croaked, voice hoarse from months of disuse. Her gaze settled on the assembled alien crew, and remarkably, she showed no sign of fear, only clinical assessment. You're aboard the FRS Celestial Seeker, Captain Thela announced, moving closer to the quarantine field. I am Captain Thela. We recovered you from the UES horizon after receiving your distress signal. Dr. Chen attempted to sit up, grimacing with the effort. How long? Your vessel's logs indicate you were in stasis for approximately 3 standard months, Xerax supplied. The human's face, so expressive compared to most species, registered shock. 3 months? That's impossible. The stasis fluid wasn't designed for extended use. Her eyes suddenly widened. The containment protocols, did you verify the secondary quarantine seals on the horizon before extraction? There were no operational quarantine systems when we arrived, First Officer Krell stated bluntly. Your vessel was severely damaged. You were the only survivor. The human's reaction surprised them all. Instead of displaying the emotional distress expected from learning of her crew's demise, Dr. Chen immediately attempted to stand, only for her legs to buckle beneath her. I need to see your sensor logs, she demanded, struggling to rise again. Now. You're in no condition, Ventrix began. You don't understand, Dr. Chen interrupted, her voice gaining strength with urgency. If the containment failed, if the parasites escaped the research bay, she looked directly at Captain Thela. Your entire vessel could be at risk. Explain, Thela commanded. The organisms we were studying, we call them void leeches. They're unlike any parasitic life form previously documented. Dr. Chen explained, each word measured despite her obvious urgency. They exist partially out of phase with normal spacetime, allowing them to bypass standard physical barriers. They attack neural systems, hijacking the host's body while consuming consciousness. If they're so dangerous, Security Chief Gorvin's crystalline voice resonated with accusation. Why were humans experimenting on them? Dr. Chen's eyes narrowed. Because 3 Federation colony worlds went silent after reporting unusual phenomena consistent with the leech's presence. We were developing countermeasures. This revelation sent a ripple of unease through the assembled aliens. The implication was clear. Dr. Chen's research hadn't been some reckless human experiment, but an authorized Federation operation with significant implications for galactic security. Before further questions could be asked, a ship's alert system activated with a blaring cacophony of tones designed to be recognizable to all species aboard. Bridge to Captain came Navigator Pix's panicked voice over the comm system. Unknown vessel approaching at high velocity. Configuration matches no known registry. On my way, Captain Thela responded, already moving toward the exit. Maintain quarantine protocols, she instructed Medical Officer Ventrix before addressing Dr. Chen directly. We will continue this conversation shortly. As most of the senior staff hurried to the bridge, Dr. Chen called after them. If their hull has an iridescent sheen that seems to shift when not directly observed, they're already infected. The bridge of the Celestial Seeker was a scene of controlled chaos when Captain Thela arrived. The main viewscreen displayed a vessel of unfamiliar design, organic-looking curves melded with crystalline structures that seemed to constantly shift and reorganize. Analysis, Thela demanded, taking her command position. Configuration unknown, Navigator Pix reported, his small hands flying over the controls. Mass readings fluctuate erratically. Energy signatures inconsistent with any registered propulsion system. They're not responding to hails on a frequency, added his twin, Navigator Pax. First Officer Krell studied the tactical display with growing concern. Their approach vector suggests intercept trajectory. Recommend yellow alert status. Agreed, Captain Phil responded. Yellow alert. Shields at maximum. Science Officer Xerax had moved to his station and was now staring at his readings with all four eyes widened in alarm. Captain, I'm detecting the same unusual radiation signature we observed on the UVS Horizon's hull fragments. The implication hung silently in the recycled air of the bridge. Whatever had destroyed the human vessel was now approaching them. Red alert, Captain Philo ordered without hesitation. All hands to battle stations. The ship's lighting shifted to the emergency spectrum as crew members rushed to secure stations. Security Chief Gorvin's crystalline form hardened visibly as he activated weapon systems. Unknown vessel now at 4,000 kilometers and closing rapidly, Navigator Pax announced, his voice rising in pitch with anxiety. Open a channel, Captain Thela instructed. Channel open, confirmed Communications Officer Elara, her bioluminescent appendages pulsing with nervous light. This is Captain Thela of the Federation research ship Celestial Seeker. You are approaching on an intercept course. State your intentions or alter your vector immediately. The view screen flickered in response, displaying what at first appeared to be a standard communication feed. But instead of a sentient face, they saw only a writhing mass of iridescent tendrils surrounding what might have been a mouth, or perhaps an eye. A sound filled the bridge, not transmitted through the communication system, but seemingly emanating from the very walls of the vessel. It resembled speech, but distorted beyond recognition, vibrating at frequencies that made several crew members cover their auditory organs in pain. Cut transmission. First Officer Krell bellowed. The view screen returned to the external view of the approaching vessel, now close enough that its surface features were clearly visible, a constantly shifting pattern of iridescence just as Dr. Chen had described. They're powering weapons. Gorvin reported, his crystalline structure vibrating with alarm, energy signatures climbing exponentially. Evasive maneuvers, Captain Thiel ordered. Return fire, all available. Her command was cut short as the first attack struck the Celestial Seeker. It wasn't a conventional energy blast or projectile. Instead, a wave of distortion rippled across the shields, temporarily phasing them out of existence before they reestablished themselves. Direct hit to starboard shield emitters. Engineer Dross reported, her wings buzzing with agitation. Shield efficiency down to 68%. The ship rocked with a second impact. This time, the lights flickered momentarily. They're targeting our power distribution nodes, Krell observed, his massive form braced against his console. Precision strikes beyond standard targeting capabilities. Captain Fella's gelatinous form pulsed with the equivalent of an adrenaline response. Gorvin, return fire, target their weapons systems. Attempting to lock, the security chief responded, frustration evident in his tone. Their configuration keeps shifting. Standard targeting algorithms are ineffective. Another impact sent several crew members tumbling from their stations. A cascade of sparks erupted from an auxiliary console. Hull breach on Deck 4, Engineer Dross reported. Emergency containment fields holding. This is unsustainable, First Officer Krell growled. At this rate, our shields will fail within minutes. The situation seemed hopeless until an unexpected voice came through the internal communication system. Bridge, this is Dr. Chen. Let me help. Captain Thela hesitated only briefly. Transfer communication to main screen. The view screen split, showing both the attacking vessel and the human's face from the medical bay. They're not actually changing configuration, Dr. Chen explained rapidly, her eyes intense. It's a perceptual distortion. The void leeches affect neural processing, making it impossible to focus targeting systems consistently. Can you recommend a countermeasure? Captain Thela asked, ignoring the shocked looks from her crew at the notion of accepting help from a human. Switch your targeting sensors to ultraviolet spectrum. Frequency band 320 nanometers. The parasites can't distort that wavelength effectively. Security Chief Gorvin's crystalline structure vibrated with skepticism. Captain, relying on the human's advice. Do it, Thelo ordered. Gorvin reluctantly adjusted the targeting parameters. Almost immediately, his console emitted the confirmation tone of a successful weapons lock. Target acquired, he announced, surprise evident in his voice. Fire at will, Captain Thela commanded. The Celestial Seeker's primary weapon batteries discharge, sending pulses of concentrated energy toward the hostile vessel. Unlike their previous attempts, these struck with precision, leaving glowing impact points on the shifting hull. Direct hits, Gorvin reported, detecting power fluctuations in their propulsion system. For the first time since the engagement began, a sense of possible victory permeated the bridge. It was short-lived. Multiple projectiles launching from the hostile vessel. Navigator Pix warned. "Brace for impact," Krell shouted. Instead of detonating against the shields, the projectiles passed through them as if they weren't there, phasing partially out of regular spacetime, just as Dr. Chen had described the parasites themselves doing. They impacted the hull directly, each one burning through the exterior plating like acid through tissue. Boarding pods, Security Chief Gorvin realized with horror. They're attempting to breach the hull. Security teams to all impact sites, Captain Thelo ordered. Medical Officer Ventrix, secure the quarantine bay. Captain. Dr. Chen interrupted, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Your security teams won't be effective against these entities. I need to be released from quarantine." "Absolutely not," First Officer Krell objected. "Containment protocols will get everyone aboard killed," Dr. Chen finished. "I've been inoculated against the parasites. The research my team completed before the attack. It works. I'm immune." The ship shuddered with another impact more violent than the previous ones. Emergency lighting flickered ominously. Hull integrity failing on multiple decks, Engineer Dross reported, her usually steady voice trembling. Containment fields at critical levels. Captain Thela made her decision. Medical Officer Ventrix released Dr. Chen from quarantine. Security, escort her to the nearest breach point. "Captain," Krell protested. "We're out of options," First Officer Thela replied, her gelatinous form rippling with determination. "Sometimes survival requires calculated risk." In the medical bay, Dr. Maya Chen stood as the quarantine field dissipated around her. Despite the muscle atrophy from extended stasis, her movements were becoming more coordinated by the minute. Another human myth about their remarkable recovery capabilities proving unexpectedly true. "I'll need weapons and access to your chemical synthesis lab," she told the security team that arrived to escort her. When they hesitated, she added with surprising authority, "Immediately." As the Celestial Seeker continued to battle the parasite-controlled vessel, its crew was about to witness firsthand whether humans truly deserve their reputation for resourcefulness in the face of impossible odds, or if the myths of human resilience were just that, myths. What none of them yet realized was that the ordeal had only just begun. Alien soldiers laugh at human myths until their war hero tells the truth. Part 3. Respect Earned. Dr. Maya Chen moved through the corridors of the Celestial Seeker with single-minded purpose, her borrowed environmental suit several sizes too large for her human frame. The security team struggled to keep pace as she navigated toward the nearest breach point, consulting a holographic ship schematic projected from a borrowed datapad. "Breach ahead, Section 17 Beta," announced Security Officer Malk, his chitinous exoskeleton clicking nervously as they approached. "Life support compromised. Atmosphere venting." "Steal your suits," Dr. Chen commanded with such natural authority that the alien security team complied instantly, before exchanging embarrassed glances at having automatically followed a human's orders. The breach came into view, a 2-meter hole melted through the bulkhead, its edges still glowing with residual energy. Beyond it, the boarding pod protruded like a metallic parasite attached to the ship's hull. The pod's entry hatch stood open, revealing an ominously dark interior. "Anything?" Dr. Chen asked, adjusting the settings on the improvised detection device she'd assembled in the chemical synthesis lab. Officer Malk conducted a standard scan. No life signs detected. "They wouldn't register as life by your parameters," Dr. Chen replied grimly. "Their biosignatures exist partially out of phase with conventional reality." As if on cue, her detection device emitted a series of escalating tones. Dr. Chen's expression hardened behind her environmental suit's faceplate. "They're here," she announced. "Multiple entities moving through the ventilation system toward life support." "Impossible," objected Officer Draz, the tallest of the security team. "Our internal sensors would have." "Your sensors aren't calibrated to detect them," Dr. Chen interrupted. "Listen carefully. You need to seal all access to critical systems, bridge, engineering, and life support. Use physical barriers, not energy fields. They can phase through energy but not dense matter." "Our orders are to escort you to safety," Officer Malk stated, his mandibles clicking with uncertainty. Dr. Chen's laugh was short and humorless. "There is no safety. Not anymore." She checked the makeshift weapon she assembled, a modified plasma torch connected to a container of chemicals from the lab. "I'm going after them. Your choice if you follow." Without waiting for a response, she moved toward the nearest maintenance access panel. The security team exchanged glances, their various physiologies expressing the universal language of disbelief. "The human is either exceptionally brave or completely irrational," Officer Draz observed. "Is there a difference with humans?" Officer Malk replied before reluctantly following Dr. Chen into the maintenance shaft. On the bridge, the situation had deteriorated further. The hostile vessel maintained its attacks, systematically targeting the Celestial Seeker's propulsion systems. Multiple hull breaches had forced the crew to seal off entire sections of the ship. Engines at 32% capacity, Engineer Dross reported, her wings vibrating with stress. One more direct hit to the propulsion array and we lose FTL capability entirely. Captain Fella's gelatinous form pulsated with barely controlled alarm. Options. The Magellan Nebula is within range, Navigator Pix suggested. Its ionized gas clouds might provide cover from their sensors. Or trap us completely, First Officer Krell countered. We'd be blind as well. Before Captain Fela could decide, Science Officer Xerax's console emitted an urgent alert. Captain, I'm detecting multiple unauthorized accesses to ship systems. Something is attempting to override environmental controls. The parasites, Captain Thela realized. They're trying to alter life support parameters to suit their physiology. She activated the internal communication system. Security team, report status. Officer Malk's voice came through, punctuated by labored breathing and background noises that sounded disturbingly like something sliding through metal ducts. Following the human through maintenance access Delta 7. She seems to know what she's. The communication cut abruptly, replaced by a burst of static and what might have been a scream. Security team, Captain Thela called, respond immediately. Only silence answered. First Officer Krell's massive exoskeleton creaked as he stood. Permission to lead a second security team to investigate. Before Captain Thela could respond, a ship lurched violently as another impact struck home. The bridge lights flickered and died, replaced seconds later by the dim glow of emergency lighting. Main power grid offline, Engineer Dross announced. Switching to emergency systems. Alert all sections, Captain Thela ordered. Implement Isolation Protocol Sigma. Seal all compartments. As the crew scrambled to execute their emergency procedures, Navigator Pax suddenly stiffened at his station, his six-fingered hands freezing above his console. The small Polusian's eye stalk swiveled in impossible directions before he turned slowly to face the bridge crew. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that sent waves of instinctive dread through everyone present. This vessel now belongs to the collective. Resistance is unnecessary and inefficient. Security Chief Gorvin's crystalline form hardened as he raised his weapon. Navigator Pax is compromised. Don't shoot. First Officer Krell commanded. That's still Navigator Pax's body. The possessed navigator tilted his head at an unnatural angle. Your designations are irrelevant. Your biological forms will be reproposed. Your knowledge will be absorbed. Two more crew members, a junior engineering officer and the communications specialist, suddenly convulsed at their stations before turning to face the others with the same vacant expressions. The infection is spreading, Science Officer Xerax chittered in panic. They're taking over the crew. Captain Thela made the hardest decision of her career. All uncompromised personnel fall back to emergency evacuation stations. Prepare to abandon ship. Captain. First Officer Krell objected. The Celestial Seeker is already lost. Thela finished, her gelatinous form rippling with resignation. We must preserve what crew we can. As the bridge crew retreated toward the emergency escape pods, the ship's communication system suddenly activated. But instead of more possessed crew members, Dr. Maya Chen's voice came through, tense but controlled. Captain Thela, this is Dr. Chen. Do not abandon ship. Repeat, do not abandon ship. Dr. Chen, Captain Thela replied, hope flaring briefly. What is your status? I've reached environmental control, human reported. The security team is gone. But I've synthesized a compound that should neutralize the parasites. I need to introduce it through the ventilation system. The ventilation system is compromised, Xerax warned. They're using it to move throughout the ship. Exactly, Dr. Chen confirmed, which means I can use it to deliver the compound directly to them. But I need engineering control to reroute power and override safety protocols. Captain Thela glanced at her remaining bridge crew, seeing the doubt in their expressions. Trusting their survival to a human's plan seemed like madness. Yet the alternative was abandoning the ship to the parasites. What do you need from us? She asked. Create a distraction, Dr. Chen replied. Something to draw the infected crew members away from environmental control. Then get to the escape pods and prepare for emergency launch on my signal. And what will you be doing? First Officer Krell demanded. There was a pause before Dr. Chen answered, her voice steady. What needs to be done? The communication ended, leaving the bridge crew in uncomfortable silence. A distraction? Engineer Dross buzzed skeptically. She expects us to risk our lives on a human's desperate plan. Do you have a better suggestion, Engineer? Captain Thela asked. When no alternative was offered, she began issuing orders. The remaining crew would create systematic overloads in non-critical systems, drawing the attention of the infected crew members away from environmental control. Meanwhile, they would prepare the escape pods for immediate departure. As the plan was implemented, chaos spread throughout the Celestial Seeker. System after system began triggering alarms, creating a symphony of alerts that sent the infected crew members scrambling to respond. The distraction worked perhaps too well. The hostile vessel outside increased its attack, recognizing something was happening aboard the science ship. Hull integrity at 17%. Science Officer Xerax reported as they reached the evacuation bay. Structural failure imminent. "Where is Dr. Chen?" Captain Thela demanded, her sensory stalk scanning for any sign of the human. The ship's communication system crackled to life once more. "Captain, it's Chen. The compound is ready. I've overridden the safety protocols on the atmospheric processors. When I activate it, the temperature in the ventilation system will rise to over 200 degrees Celsius, vaporizing the compound and distributing it shipwide. That temperature will damage critical systems." Engineer Dross objected. "Yes," Dr. Chen acknowledged, "and any crew members not in sealed environments or escape pods will suffer severe respiratory damage. You need to launch now." The implication hung silently in the recycled air. Dr. Chen wasn't planning to evacuate. "Dr. Chen," Captain Thela began, "there's an escape pod reserved for you. You still have time to—" "No, I don't," the human interrupted, her voice calm despite the circumstances. "Someone needs to manually override the final safety protocols from the primary environmental control center. The system won't allow remote activation for a procedure that could potentially harm the crew." Security Chief Gorvin's crystalline structure vibrated with confusion. "You're sacrificing yourself? Why? This isn't your ship or your crew." "Because I can," Dr. Chen replied simply. "My environmental suit will protect me long enough to complete the procedure, and the inoculation I developed might give me a fighting chance against any residual parasites." "But the probability of survival," Science Officer Xerax began. "Is irrelevant," Dr. Chen finished. "Sometimes the mission is more important than survival odds. Now go." First Officer Krell rumbled with reluctant admiration. "That's very human of you." "Yes," Dr. Chen agreed, a smile evident in her voice despite everything. "It is." Captain Thela hesitated only briefly before making her decision. "All personnel board escape pods immediately. Prepare for emergency launch." As the crew filed into the escape pods, Captain Thela remained at the communication console. "Dr. Chen, the Federation will know of your sacrifice." "Just make sure they get my research data," the human responded, "so this doesn't happen again." With their final acknowledgement, Captain Thela joined her crew in the command escape pod. As the pods launched, streaming away from the damaged science vessel, the crew watched through viewports as the Celestial Seeker began to glow from within, environmental systems overheating as Dr. Chen implemented her desperate plan. The hostile vessel, seemingly sensing the threat, intensified its attack. But it was too late. A wave of superheated air carrying the antiparasitic compound swept through every compartment of the Celestial Seeker. The infected crew members convulsed as the parasites within them were forced out of their hosts, visible briefly as iridescent wisps before disintegrating in the hostile atmosphere. "Remarkable," Science Officer Xerax whispered, all four eyes fixed on the sensor readings. "It's working." The hostile vessel's attacks suddenly became erratic, suggesting the parasites controlling it were also affected. It began to drift away, its strange propulsion systems failing. "Life signs aboard the Celestial Seeker?" Captain Thela asked, her gelatinous form rippling with concern. Xerax conducted a scan, his antennae drooping. "None detected, Captain." A somber silence filled the escape pod. Whatever their previous opinions about humans, Dr. Maya Chen's sacrifice could not be dismissed as mere mythology. They had witnessed human resourcefulness and determination firsthand. 3 days later, a Federation rescue vessel retrieved the escape pods. The survivors were debriefed at the nearest starbase, their accounts of the parasite encounter, and Dr. Chen's actions carefully recorded for analysis. Captain Thela insisted on personally delivering the research data recovered from the UES Horizon to Federation Xenopathology Division. 2 weeks after the incident, the crew of the former Celestial Seeker gathered in a recreation lounge of the starbase. The mood was subdued as they awaited new assignments. "I still don't understand why she did it," Engineer Dross said, breaking the contemplative silence. "Sacrificing herself for a ship full of species that weren't even her own." According to human historical records, Science Officer Xerax offered his usual scientific detachment tinged with newfound respect. They have a long tradition of individual sacrifice for collective survival. It appears to be an evolutionary adaptation from their development as a pack species. "I've been reviewing Federation reports on human capabilities," First Officer Krell rumbled. Many of those absurd myths we dismissed, their endurance, their adaptability, their capacity to function despite injury, are documented with empirical evidence. Their psychological resilience is perhaps more remarkable than their physical attributes, Captain Thela added, her translucent form gathering the group's attention. Dr. Chen knew her survival chances were minimal, yet she proceeded without hesitation. Security Chief Gorvin's crystalline structure shimmered with reluctant admiration. Perhaps we were too quick to dismiss human capabilities as exaggeration. A notification tone interrupted their conversation. Captain Thela checked her datapad, her gelatinous form suddenly pulsating with surprise. "What is it, Captain?" Krell inquired. "A message from Federation Medical," Thela replied, her voice modulator conveying stunned disbelief. "They found a survivor aboard the Celestial Seeker." The crew's diverse expressions of shock transcended their physiological differences. "Impossible?" Engineer Dross buzzed. "The environmental systems reached temperatures that would liquefy most organic compounds." Apparently, Captain Thela continued, reading from the message, Dr. Chen managed to seal herself in a maintenance compartment near the outer hull. When the temperature rose, she breached her own environmental suit to create an emergency decompression. The explosive decompression blew her through a maintenance hatch into space. "That's suicide," Officer Malk exclaimed. "For most species, yes," Captain Thela acknowledged. "But humans can survive in vacuum for brief periods. A Federation patrol found her drifting in deep hibernation from the cold of space. Another supposedly mythical human capability. She deliberately exposed herself to vacuum." Science Officer Xerax's mandibles clicked rapidly in scientific fascination. "The calculated risk assessment required for such a decision is very human," First Officer Krell finished. "They embrace risk in ways other species find incomprehensible." Medical Officer Ventrix, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. "Will she recover?" "The report says she's undergone extensive cellular regeneration therapy," Captain Thela replied. "But yes, they expect a full recovery. She's asking to speak with us." The crew exchanged glances of amazement. Their previous mockery of human capabilities now seemed not just misguided but embarrassingly ignorant. 2 days later, they gathered in the medical center of the starbase. Dr. Maya Chen sat propped up in a recovery bed, her small human form appearing paradoxically both fragile and indestructible. Her skin bore the distinctive modeling of vacuum exposure and radiation damage, but her eyes were alert and focused. "You look surprised to see me," she greeted them, her voice raspy but amused. "Don't tell me you believe the old myth about humans and not being able to survive in space." Captain Thela moved forward, her gelatinous form conveying what her species was profound respect. "Dr. Chen, on behalf of my crew and the Federation, I extend our deepest gratitude for your actions." "Just doing my job, Captain," the human replied with a casual shrug that belied the extraordinary nature of her survival. "Your job?" Engineer Dross couldn't contain her curiosity. "Your assignment was cynopathology research, not suicide missions." Dr. Chen's laugh was unexpectedly warm. "You still don't understand humans very well, do you? We're explorers, problem solvers. When faced with impossible situations, we don't accept defeat. We redefine the parameters of the possible." Science Officer Xerax stepped forward, antennae twitching with scientific curiosity. "Dr. Chen, if I may, the physiological adaptations required for your survival exceed standard evolutionary parameters. How did humans develop such capabilities?" The human smiled. "We didn't develop them. We survived because of them. Earth isn't a gentle world. We evolved through 5 mass extinction events, ice ages, plagues, and our own self-inflicted catastrophes. Those who couldn't adapt didn't survive to pass on their genes." First Officer Krell rumbled thoughtfully. "So the myths about human resilience aren't myths at all," Captain Thela finished. "Just documented history that seemed too extraordinary to believe." Dr. Chen nodded, then winced slightly at the movement. "Truth is often more remarkable than fiction, especially when it comes to survival." As the conversation continued, the former crew of the Celestial Seeker found their perceptions fundamentally altered. The human they had once dismissed as a fragile, inferior species had demonstrated capabilities that defied their understanding. More importantly, she had risked everything to save them. Aliens who had mockingly dismissed her kind's accomplishments as mere mythology. Later, as they prepared to depart for their new assignments, Captain Thela found Dr. Chen in the Starbase's observation lounge, gazing out at the stars. "Your actions have changed many perspectives," the captain said, joining the human at the viewport, "including my own." "Good," Dr. Chen replied. "The galaxy is too dangerous for allies to underestimate each other. The Federation Cynopathology Division has requested you join a multi-species research team," Thela informed her, "to continue your work on the parasites." "And you?" the human asked. "I've been assigned to command the U.S. Horizon EU," Thela replied. a new research vessel with an enhanced mission profile. Congratulations, Captain. I've also been authorized to select my own senior staff, Thela continued. I would be honored if you would consider the position of Chief Science Officer. Dr. Chen turned from the stars to face the gelatinous captain, surprise evident in her expressive human features. Me, serving under a non-human captain? Is that a problem? Thela asked. The human smiled. Not at all, just unexpected. She extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. I accept, Captain. As Captain Thela's appendage met Dr. Chen's hand in the formal gesture, both knew this was more than a simple professional arrangement. It represented something profound, a new understanding between species based not on myths or assumptions, but on demonstrated truth and earned respect. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, the legends of human capabilities grew, no longer dismissed as exaggerations, but acknowledged as the remarkable truth they had always been.